You can call me Generation Z, Q, or even P. It doesn't matter. I am more than any letter you give to me. So please, don't try to box me. You'll find I come in many colors, shapes, and sizes. But mostly, I come unboxed. I can be online, offline, hang out with friends, and even draw the line. Because I'm more than just likes, shares, and cute little emojis. It is said, the choices you make determines your destiny. I say, it's not the choices that define me, but the reasons I made them. I choose to challenge notions of success, only to bring about my own. I choose to be open so I can learn from others. I choose to look inward so I can plan my way forward. Yet, I know I have lots to learn, but I want more than just an education. I want to learn diverse skills and find the courage to influence this world. A world where my greatest competition is myself, because it's my world to shape. Someday, someone will ask me who I am, and I'll tell them I'm a thinker, I'm an explorer, I'm a healer, I'm a problem solver, I'm a big dreamer. I will tell them I am a global change maker.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. I thank you for your time. I think it's just so valuable that you would take the time out to chat with us. This evening, our topic is really how to navigate during these uncertain times as a family. And on behalf of Crawford International and Dr. Khadijah Mia and her team, I would like to welcome you. This has always been one of the visions of Dr. Khadijah Mia, our current managing director, and she's all about communities and building a sense of community. And that's why we are reaching out together as a unit, as a family, as an educational body to our communities. And we're saying that you are not alone during this tough and trying times. And we wanted to create a platform where we can have conversations around these topics. And I'm hoping that you're going to find it useful tonight. And I'm hoping that this 45 minutes to an hour will be valuable to you. So welcome, everybody. Just a couple of housekeeping matters for tonight. We do have a question and answering facility available there for you. So you're more than welcome to post a question in the question and answering box for us. We will then, at the end of the session, allow for about 20 minutes where we can engage with you and do a question and answering session. And there is a panel and a team that will navigate that process. Tonight with me on set, I've got Khadijah Mia, and she's a very well-known life coach, and she does many other things. And one of the things that she does really well, and it's an area of expertise, is to get people out of very difficult situations and difficult circumstances. So I'm very honored to have you with me on set tonight, Khadijah. You're always with us. You're always a trooper with us, and you always can navigate a very good conversation when it comes to really trying circumstances. So welcome here tonight.
Good evening, and thank you very much, Dr. Bock and Dr. Khadijah Mia, for having me on your platform this evening.
So parents and community members and members of the wider community and of our country, tonight we know that it's very unprecedented times, it's trying times, but we wanted to connect with you, we wanted to have conversations with you. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm hoping that you will find this hour, 45 minutes to an hour, useful, and we can add value to the conversation as well. I know that people have been stressing, Khadijah, and I want to start straight away. There's a lot of anxiety going on. People are stressed out. People do not know what to do at their homes. And I just want to touch base with you, and I want to get into your brain, into what are you experiencing? What is happening there? I'm sure everybody's experiencing similar feelings and emotions. And I just need that reassurance once again tonight that, you know, people are not alone. Everybody is going through this.
Yes, I think, Dr. Bock, one of the key things, you know, at the moment, there is a feeling of numbness, as I would call it. You know, everybody's very numb. We're in crisis mode at the moment, and I think that's the reality of the situation at hand. However, I think one of the most important things is that as a community, as a society, as a country, we all are there for each other. And I mean, as Crawford International, creating this platform is just one of those kind of initiatives to reach out to people. But, you know, generally from the clients that I interact with just today, you know, I work remotely. I'm based in Johannesburg. I have clients in KZN. And I must tell you, you know, just speaking to some of them this morning, I was devastated to hear about the extreme amount of stress, pressure, uncertainty, and crises that many individuals are facing at the moment. So there's a lot of trauma out there. And I think that is the reality of our current situation in most areas in South Africa at the moment.
Yeah, and also, you know, I was thinking, and obviously I've got my reflection time early morning, and I'm a great fan of the work of Jay Shetty, and it's just looking at, you know, you need to wake up with purpose, you need to live a purpose-driven life and have certain goals for the day that you can obviously knock off one by one. And I must be honest with you, even for me personally, it was quite a tough thing to do today. You know, I was actually thinking, what is the purpose, you know, for the day, you know, in this trying circumstances for many of our families and our students, especially, you know, our older students that's becoming teenagers now. They are experiencing the stress and strain, and they're looking up to their parents to guide them and to give them some sense of direction and hope. And would that be a normal feeling?
Yes, definitely. It is a normal feeling for all of us to actually deal with the uncertainty in the way that you've just described. There's a feeling of
Mm,
helplessness at the moment
mm,
that we're experiencing. And I think as leaders in the community, as teachers, as educators, as parents, I think it's so important for us to regroup on a regular
mm.
basis to try to find that space within ourselves. And for myself this morning, when I woke up, I didn't want to actually reach for my phone because, with social media at the
Yeah.
moment, the news and, these horrific scenes of
Mm,
violence and crime and everything else
yeah.
that's going on around us, I think it just becomes too much to deal with. So I think you've got to work through the process in terms of identifying what are your triggers and how can you limit some of that if at all possible. But yes, it
Mm,
is definitely a feeling that most of us are experiencing. I read this quote this morning. Interestingly enough, you speak about Jay Shetty. I really follow Tony Robbins, and he was talking about the story of your life. At the end of the
mm.
day, it's about the comeback. How do you
Yes.
actually come back, and how do you get through situations? You can't get over
Mm,
them, but you have to get
mm.
through them. And I think that resonated for me this morning when I read that quote. It said to me that despite what we're going through, we've been through so much as a country, and in
Wow.
the spirit of finding that unity and support, how do we
Mm,
come back into this
mm,
process in terms of getting through it? And I think
mm.
that is something that resonated with me. And I think it should be something that we can always try to, look into within ourselves as to how can we make a little difference in something that we can do
Wow.
today that can be meaningful to ourselves and others.
Yeah, yeah. And there's so much power in that actually, because I was also mulling, through this in my head. And we're always speaking about making a difference. I always speak about kindness. It doesn't cost us anything, so we can break the barriers through being kind, being showing
Yes.
our fellow human that we can be kind. And it just makes me think, not so long ago, Crawford launched, the John Maxwell program, where we spoke about becoming a person of influence. And it's so relevant in these times as well, because we can actually influence positivity as part of the aftermath, as part of, that restoration and that conversation in our families, and for our educators to actually use that and actually start practicing that as well. So there is quite power in trying to swing it to something much more positive. So I'm happy that you're bringing that up as well.
Yes. I think, as you've said, Dr. Bock, it's what can you do if today is your worst day? How can you make it a better day? How do you
Mm,
change your focus? And as an NLP practitioner and a life coach, I try to help individuals to look at ways in which you can actually change your perspective. So it's all
mm,
about how you look at things and how you can mobilize yourself and other people to look at things in a different light as well. So changing
yeah.
your focus can change the outcome of a situation and can change how you either react or respond to a situation. That's the key
Wow.
question.
Wow, that's very, very powerful. Look, I'm going to leave you there, and I'm going to give over to you, because I know you've got a beautiful presentation prepared to share with our listeners and our audience tonight. So I'm going to leave you, and then we will do that question and answering session for the last 20 minutes. So do enjoy it, everybody, and over to you, Khadijah.
All right, great stuff. Thank you so much, Dr. Bock. Good evening, everybody. Like I said earlier on, we are really going through very unsettling times. The question is, which way do we turn? How do we navigate through this process of huge changes? And it's just that we're bombarded by so much change currently. It's just enormous amounts of change. So if we can continue, I'll just share a little bit about myself. In terms of today's outcomes, firstly, for today's session, what are the objectives? It's really to speak a little bit about what is the backdrop of the changes, understand our current situation in context, because I think, if we get perspective, like I said earlier on when I started, it's important to regroup and reflect and look at situations from an aerial perspective and say, where am I at? What is going on here? So we'll try to understand the nature of our current circumstances at the moment. the coping mechanisms, more importantly, that we can try to adopt in whichever way possible. I know it's hard, you just hear the word coping mechanisms, dealing with change. It's like people are so tired of the same kind of stuff. However, I just want to highlight that it's all about how do you actually make it practical enough for yourself in your own world, and take from this session today whatever it is that will work best for you. We could move on. So, the struggle you are going through at the moment in today's day and age, and especially right now in our country, it creates the strength that you do need for tomorrow. And I know it's just cliche to say this, everybody goes through struggles, everybody goes through challenges and difficulty. What is strength? Where is the strength that you need? And I think it's the inner strength that I'm referring to in terms of what we've been through. So if we think about, yesterday, and you'll say, how did I actually manage the day? But when it started, I actually felt I couldn't. Yet I was able to get through it. And that's what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the strength, the inner strength and capacity that we all have within ourselves that will assist us to actually get through. And that's what we need for tomorrow. If we can move on. So a little bit about myself. I have over 20 years of experience. I just want to briefly tell you a little bit about who I am. I know for those of you who don't know me, I've been working with Crawford International. I work with corporates. I work with academic institutions. I work with the public. My name is Khadijah. I own a human capital company called Enigma, whereby we provide HR and management consulting services. I'm a psychometrist and a certified NLP practitioner and life coach. I'm passionate about women empowerment and people development, and I work on several programs in terms of helping individuals make positive shifts in their lives. I really think that at the end of the day, it's not about what happens to you. It's about what do you do with what happens to you and how do you get through it. We could move on. In terms of my life journey, I've been through several challenges as well. And, as I said earlier on, I really believe that, each day is a new day. Life is going to throw so many things at you. It's about how you actually work through that process. And for me, what's most important is how do you actually coherently navigate through yourself, trying to find alignment between your thoughts, how your mind operates, understanding the triggers that are enablers or disablers. How do you deal with your emotions, and how do you actually deal with the actions or the behavioral dimensions that impact change in your life on an ongoing basis? So I've been through, as I said earlier on, many challenges in terms of my life journey, and I live by the affirmation which says you are enough. I think each and every one of us is enough, and even in these unsettling times, just the mere fact that people are reaching out to others just as an indication that we can definitely tap into that inner strength of being enough to help others on a broader scale. If we can move on. So let's talk about the current situation. We're dealing with a lot. As I said, we're bombarded by enormous amounts of change. And I think in the backdrop of the current context and the climate that we're living in, we need to understand our current situation. So we're dealing with a pandemic. We're dealing with COVID-19. And honestly and truly speaking, that is bringing about huge amounts of, health challenges. We're dealing with loss of lives, loss of livelihoods. People are dealing with so many aspects with the impact of COVID in itself, which we've been all trying to navigate through. Coupled to that, there's the political unrest at the moment, which is really dealing with so many aspects around uncertainty and disruption. There's chaos, there's disruption, there's a crisis mode of operation, and people are really, as a result, there's a huge amount of emotional upset, which is then obviously creating huge amounts of fear, stress, and anxiety that we are dealing with as individuals, as Wildfred and I spoke about earlier on, and as parents, for those of you that are currently, part of today's session, navigating through that process of dealing with your emotions, let alone dealing with the emotions of your children, or even as educators, dealing with your own feelings and then having to deal with individuals who look up to you, can also become very challenging during these times. We also have to understand the nature of our current situation. In our country, the economic conditions are not favorable at all. So there's a loss of jobs, unemployment is rife, poverty is out there, and there's so many aspects of uncertainty, inequalities, a whole range of dynamics which impact us. So I think as individuals, we need to understand the backdrop of all the changes that are impacting our current situation in order to try to understand our situation better. We move on. So the question many people ask me is that understanding all of this is good and well. However, what are the coping mechanisms? And as I said to you, some of this you may have heard before. However, there are others that I think are pertinent, especially during this current climate, on the backdrop of all the aspects of change that I highlighted earlier on. And when we navigate through change, I just want to say that every person's way of dealing with the situation or their threshold in terms of managing change is different. Right now, we're dealing with trauma. So we're in a state where even if we haven't been impacted on personally ourselves with a traumatic event directly, indirectly, we're witnessing it on screens, we're witnessing it through conversations with people, we're witnessing trauma and experiencing it in a direct and indirect fashion. And as a result, there are those heightened emotions, there are those distressing thoughts, and then there's behavior which is really not comforting or soothing to ourselves or to the people around us. So I'm going to just go through some of the coping mechanisms that perhaps would be of advantage for you to take note of, and that may possibly work for you as an individual as well as for your family members. The first thing I want to say is that it is okay not to be okay. Like Dr. Bock and I spoke earlier on, how are you feeling today? And I think we started off this conversation just in that light. And when I speak to people, the first thing, one normally engages with someone on is, how are you feeling? And I think we've just grown up in a culture where we just have to be okay. So I think as parents, as educators, as individuals, as students, feel through your emotions. Being afraid at this current time in our country and based on what is going on, it's okay to feel that. I think emotions, like I said earlier on, are areas that we need to basically try to understand better. And we are all feeling anxious during this volatile and stressful time. However, based on those emotions that are currently sitting with us, we haven't welcomed these so-called negative emotions. They've just come to us, but we need to learn how to manage those. And some of them are not within our control. You just wake up in the morning and you're bombarded with something. I've heard of colleagues, friends, family members who've had to go and defend certain areas in terms of the communities that they live in and deal with so many other aspects of stress. So sometimes there's so much of turbulence where you're faced with situations that are not within your control. But the first principle to understand that it is okay not to be okay and to feel through your emotions. The next thing is, please try to stay calm. And I know this is so difficult to just, say to someone, calm down. How can I calm down when I'm actually feeling all these emotions? But the manner in which you need to do this is that, especially with parents dealing with children who are looking up to them as role models or looking up to their educators or to leaders in the community and in society, the most important thing is to be mindful of the language that you use when you make statements and you communicate with people. Sometimes the statements that we make can actually alarm people, and it can create more chaos, negativity, uncertainty, and a heightened form of emotions. So try to be mindful. The other thing is, listen carefully to your child or to your children's concern. At the moment, children are very concerned. My little boy, I have two children. I have a son who's 18 and another one who's 11. One is in matric and the one is in grade 6. And my little one who's in grade 6 asks me questions all the time. Mommy, what's going on? What's happening in the news? Are we going to get affected? Is this going to affect us? What's going on? And I think we need to listen carefully to what our children are asking us. What are their concerns? And we need to, instead of ignoring them and say, just, don't worry, it's all fine. I think we need to sit down with them to try to understand what is it that they're concerned about, to show interest in supporting them. And by understanding them, it helps them to know that you're acknowledging their feelings and emotions. And in the process, you can start reassuring them. So, when a child asks something and you really don't know what to say, I think you need to say, Mommy doesn't know or Daddy doesn't know. However, you could frame this by saying to a child, if you see they're really anxious, we don't know what's really going on. However, we've got courageous people out there that are really trying to help us in terms of frontline workers like the police, medical staff, community members, etc. And just try to reinforce them in a positive frame that they're safe. Because, the first thing that individuals want in order to be calm is the aspect around safety and security. So it's not about misleading children, but I think also it's about trying to create an environment which makes it conducive. So expressing your feeling as a parent is also great. It's okay for you to tell your child, Mommy or Daddy is feeling afraid right now, and we are going through a very challenging time. However, it's important for you to understand that we're going to get through this. So, just trying to assimilate your thoughts and using the right statements and communicating in a way that is more mindful with your children helps them to stay calm and helps you to stay calm as well. If we move on. The other thing, like I said, is be honest. Children look up to us and, they really, as parents, it's vitally important for us to openly communicate with our children about what's going on, obviously dependent on the developmental stage of your child and dependent on what it is they're able to understand. So most children, like I said earlier on, my son asked me what's going on and he sees it. I mean, he's on his iPad, he chats to his friends online and, so children definitely have an understanding of what's happening and dependent on their age, try to just touch base with them regularly to check that they're okay and look for symptoms that perhaps, may tell you that something's not okay, then try to work with those individuals accordingly. Older children, teens, and younger adults might also ask certain questions and they may request more information. And based on that, I think it's so important to have honest, open dialogue so that you can start helping them understand what it is you know. You may not have all the answers, but as I said, in a positive frame, try to reassure, especially children, that, things are going to settle or what is going to be done. And if you really don't have the answers, try and be as straightforward and as direct with them as possible. We move on. Sensory overload. I think, with social media, the television, the news, everything that just is flooding our screens, and we just, getting a glimpse of the reality TV around everything that's happening. So technology is definitely an enabler, but it can disable you. So I think it's important also to be selective. In this time, when you're going through this kind of crisis situation, especially with unrest and everything else, you can stay informed. Please be aware of, the type of newsworthy sources or reputable streams that you are going to obtain the relevant information. And based on that, obviously take it, in bite sizes. I think the minute you sit on your phone and you start going through everything at once, and most of it is not verified, you alarm yourself more. And then by spreading that, you alarm others. So it's important to try to reduce the sensory overload as far as possible. Set limits and boundaries. I think it's so important to create safe spaces and safe places. And I know that is challenging to do in our current situation, especially with the crises that we're going through. What area is safe? And, people their lives are threatened. People are feeling extremely vulnerable and insecure, and they've experienced immense amounts of trauma. But as far as you can, manage your time and focus on what you can do, not what you can't do. So for today, if it means this is what I can do today in terms of assisting someone in need or assisting my family or being able to navigate through the process today by just getting up, helping myself through the day, by being able to cook a pot of food or to help my child or give my child a hug, that's great. Create safe spaces, but also try to be aware of the negative people and spaces and places that may impact your mood. And in those situations, I think you need to be mindful and self-aware of what that is doing to you. So try to exit those situations where they create a lot of negativity for you and heightened forms of emotions which you cannot deal with. So it's important to try and do that, and then in the process set those healthy boundaries for yourself and for your family accordingly. The other thing that's also quite critical for you to do during this time is to develop a safety plan. And when I say safety plan, you know, with the chaos, with the uncertainty, I know everybody is in such a panic-stricken mode. I had people calling me today, clients that I was, you know, liaising with, as I said earlier on, and it's like, what do we do next? You know, how do I navigate through this process? Should I be alarmed of this, or should I do that? And I think you need to sit down as a family. But first, I mean, as parents, sit down and work through what is your current situation like, what is within your control, what is out of your control, what can you manage, what can't you manage, and take the control back in terms of certain things that you can do by putting certain contingency plans in place. So try to have emergency telephone numbers written down for your children as well, for yourselves. You know, there are community support groups that you can play a role in. You can also assist with directly or indirectly, and try to offer those forms of support. It also makes you feel like you're really doing something meaningful. But when you have a plan around, you know, how you're going to manage certain aspects that need attention, especially in this crisis situation, it's important to get your family together. And if you have older children, to explain to them what it's all about so that they also have a level of understanding. Self-care is vitally important. And, you know, when we talk about self-care, it's about really taking care of yourself. And I know in this crisis situation, people, again, are panic-stricken and they're trying to sort of give of themselves in all different directions, and you feel stretched. So you need to try to just, in some other way, distract yourself, do something during the day, you know, for a few minutes or an hour or 30 seconds, whatever it is that gives you some time to just have a bit of an outlet. For me, I love going into green spaces from my office. I love stepping outdoors, just sipping on my tea and finding a moment of stillness. You know, so you can do whatever it is that can at least somehow lift your mood and can create a sensory experience for you, which I'll talk about a little later on. There are many things you could do with your children in terms of self-care time, dependent on what they enjoy doing, whether it's board games, whether it's cooking in the kitchen, whether it's doing something creative, whether it's drawing or painting. I know in this time people say, where do you have time? That you're so worried, when you're feeling so stressed out, you don't feel like doing that. You know, depending on what really works for you. Even if you're sitting and holding your child and saying, I love you, I'm here for you, that in itself is self-care. So find moments and find spaces and find things that you can do that will enable you to feel good within yourself and reach out to your loved ones. The other thing to do is to stay healthy and to stay fit. So I know stage we're going through such a major crisis. Nobody wants to go in marathon. So it's not about going out and really exercising. It's about eating in a healthy manner. And I know when we're housebound, especially with lockdown and being at home, you know, we tend to make the wrong choices. We need to boost our immune systems. COVID is still out there. We need to make sure that we energize our mind, our bodies, our souls. We need to uplift our mood. And, you know, just doing something basic. For example, when I say exercise or keeping fit, just taking a walk, even in your house, taking a walk outside in your garden or in the place that you live, in your neighborhood, etc., wherever it's safe and you're able to do so. Try to just have some mobility, because you will, you know, you'll see what a major difference it makes when you get some fresh air, when you get sunlight. It lifts your mood, it helps you to release endorphins, it stimulates happy hormones, and it definitely helps you to boost your immune system, which you need to do, especially when you're feeling stressed and anxious, and based on the virus that still currently, exists. We need to boost our immune systems, and we need to make the right choices in terms of the food that we eat to nourish our bodies. So do not lose sight of that. As much as you're busy doing everything else, try to find time to do that as well. Inner calm is really important, and I think with parents and children can do this together as a joint exercise. Even educators who are doing things online, try different techniques and ways with your students or with your children and your families to do a little bit of deep breathing with to do different exercises. It really helps you to eliminate those stressful thoughts that may be crowding your mind and creating the anxiety and the tension and the stress levels. So forms of yoga or deep breathing or other forms of meditation, whatever works best for you, helps you to create calm. It helps you to create balance, and really the process of helping you connect with mind, body, and soul. And it has huge impact in terms of helping you just to calm down for a little bit. With your children, as I said, you can do several exercises with them, even on a daily basis, bringing it into your routine. You don't have to be a yoga instructor. You don't have to be someone who's well trained in breathing. Even just basic techniques are good enough for you to get going, to try to create the environment that's needed to help create calm. If we could move on. The other thing that is so important, and this picture depicts it, I think, in the most beautiful way, is prayer and gratitude. Right now, our only source of inner strength in the deepest form is prayer. And I think from whichever religion you come from, background, culture, I think prayer is so important, and it actually coincides with gratitude in a big way, because when we're grateful, we're able to basically take away from a situation and say each day, I know that today wasn't the best day that I wanted it to be, but I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful that I have family. I may have not been able to salvage certain situations or manage things in the best way that I could, but I'm grateful that I have certain things, that I can be grateful for. And those are not necessarily just external aspects. There are the internal things that we value. So I think it's important to try to find the comfort and the connection in terms of having faith with your Creator, knowing that prayer is something that you can definitely go to. Whether it's finding rituals as a family that you can pray together, even every single day, or doing it on your own privately, if that's what is important to you. Find ways to look at also the silver lining and the blessings in little things that you were able to get through for the day. I spoke to another colleague of mine who's running a support group at the moment, helping other moms in one of the regions where they do not have basic essentials at the moment because shops are closed and there isn't obviously sufficient amount of supplies that are needed. And they're moms with babies, and guess what? Everybody is helping each other out. I've got this, if you need that, can I help you with this? And the blessing, she said to me, the blessing today is that a friend of mine reached out and I needed this for my baby, and guess what? I got it. So I think, if we're appreciative about the little things that we can do, we become so much more grateful. And if we connect with our Creator, it gives us an inner sense of peace from within. We can move on. I think another thing is talking it out. Find someone that you can talk to. It's vitally important to talk to a friend, a family member, a teacher, anybody, even in your community, someone that you're comfortable with. Talking helps to soothe. As I say, it helps to calm the mind. It helps to soothe the soul. And as a consultant and as a coach, I talk to people, and more importantly, people talk to me. And it's about really talking through situations. So it's important under the current circumstances, if you're not coping, to allay your own fears by dealing with them and speaking to someone about them. And especially us as parents or educators, if we need to be there to support people that look up to us, it's important for us to also make sure that we're okay. So try to talk through whatever it is that may be bothering you. And in so doing, you will be able to be there for your children and for your students in a way that is meaningful. Important numbers. These are just some of the important numbers that you may need to have on call. in emergency situations. And I'm sure you will also have members of the community and forums belong to important during these times. I saw also put out some emergency contact numbers and details for people to, contact if they have a specific need, etc. So I think that's excellent. It's really important to actually utilize the avenues that are available so you can get relevant assistance that you need. Okay. The other thing is to reach out, and as Dr. Bock says, and that's his famous statement, it costs nothing to be kind. I think during these uncertain and turbulent times, being kind and being helpful to people also helps us to heal. It helps us to calm ourselves down. It gives us meaning, it gives us purpose, and it allows us to actually reach out to other individuals. So try to join support groups, community forums, school groups, whatever you can do in a direct or indirect manner. And by giving, you will feel better within yourself. So try as far as possible to be a beacon of light and hope. And this will inspire your children also to look up to you and say, wow, mommy or daddy actually did this. And guess what? It made her feel so good. I can do the same. And giving children also things that they can do during this time in terms of reaching out or helping out with certain things. I had another colleague today who spoke about, a soup kitchen, and they're going to be putting together food. So she got a child involved and they made all this food together. Child cut the vegetables, she did certain things. I think when children feel like they're actually doing something constructive, it distracts them firstly from worrying, and secondly, it gives them a purpose. So try to find ways also to reach out and include your children as well during this process. We could move on. I want to just also do a little practical exercise with you, in terms of helping you to regulate stress levels. I do a program on emotional regulation, dealing with emotions. How do you manage emotions? I think the one thing that is so important is that when emotions do come about or surface, we need to acknowledge them. Acknowledge the emotion that you're feeling. So if you're feeling fear, you need to acknowledge, hey, I'm actually feeling the fear right now. What am I feeling? And even with children, it's important to go through a process, a constructive process of not feeling disabled that you're feeling this particular emotion, especially the ones that are negative or makes us feel more stressful. It's, I actually am feeling this emotion. What am I going to do about it? Now, if we take fear as one of those examples, because currently we're dealing with fear at the moment during these really challenging times, the question is, where does fear live? Does it live in the past, the present, or the future? And in this current situation, it lives in all three states. Every single day, we're dealing with fear on a regular basis, every day with the unrest and everything else, with COVID and the stress levels that we're experiencing. It does originate from the past. There's so many events that have taken place that makes us feel more afraid. So we benchmark against that. And we're afraid about the future. We're afraid of things that we anticipate may happen. Now, some of those things may not happen, some may happen, but we just have the sense within ourselves that it's going to happen right now. And as a result, we become immobilized. So one of the things I help individuals do is, how do you navigate through those kind of emotions when you're feeling them? So in terms of a practical exercise, the one that I think is very useful, there are a number of exercises, but the one that I love to go through with my clients and with individuals is called the sensory now experience. It's stimulating your sensory field. So in terms of what it is that I can see, what can I touch, what can I smell, what can I hear, what can I taste? When you're going through fear, for example, if that particular emotion has now knocked on your door and is there for many of us, you need to do that. Let's do this together. Is you need to breathe. You need to calm yourself. To tell yourself, close your eyes, palm your hand, you hold them up. desk in front of you. You could sit with your children or on your own, even in a quiet, safe space or a space which brings about peace and calm for yourself, and say to yourself that I've got this. I'm going to be okay. That's the first thing you tell yourself. And acknowledge, what is the emotion that I'm feeling? If this feeling is fear, then I acknowledge you, but I am going to deal with this. I'm going to now start calming myself down. And take a deep breath in. Breathing is really great. It helps to stimulate so much in your body, because when we're stressed and we're feeling fear, we start breathing rapidly, and we start breathing more from the top area of our bodies, not from inside ourselves. So from our chests, we just start breathing rapidly, or we can't breathe. And some people go into panic attacks then because they feel extremely stressed. So the first thing you need to do is to start regulating your breathing patterns, to start listening to and feeling your breath. And when you start breathing more calmly, you increase the oxygen flow into your body, you stimulate your bloodstream, you start feeling a little lighter. So it's important to ground yourself. So sit in a space and observe your environment. Observe what it is that I can see right now. So I can see this beautiful picture in front of me. What is it that I can taste? So I have my herbal tea with me. I'm tasting my tea. So taste something. What is it that I can touch? I'm touching my feet. If they're on the ground, it's great to ground yourself, or to put your palms of your hand on your lap. And that is what I can touch. What can I smell? And sometimes you can smell the aroma of something in the room. I love lighting a candle, or even if it's not anything, I smell nothing, that's fine. And what can I hear? Sometimes it's some lovely music that's soothing, to go outdoors and listen to nature. But try to stimulate those sensory areas in the process, because it helps you to come back into the present moment. You're feeling anxious and afraid about something that happened in the past, or something you're worried about in the future. You need to focus on the present. So by focusing on the present, you start becoming whole again. You start focusing on yourself again. And then what you should do is close your eyes, tell yourself it's going to be okay. Take a deep breath in from your nostrils. You don't have to be an expert at breathing. These are simple techniques. And hold your breath for like even 2 or 3 seconds, and then push out. This is called straw breathing. Push out like you would push out from a straw. Push your breath out through your mouth. So let's do one together. So close your eyes, ground yourself, experience the environment that you're in, stimulate all your senses. Close your eyes, take a deep breath in from your nostrils. Hold 1, 2, and when you're ready, just release that through your mouth. So your exhalation should be longer than your inhalation, but it will help you to regulate the flow of oxygen into your body. It will make you feel a bit lighter. It will make you feel a little more energized, perhaps, and calmer. And try doing this for a couple of times until you feel a little more settled. The next thing you can do is start then working through this emotion that has knocked on your door, which is fear, and start analyzing, what is this fear causing? Where does it come from? What are the solutions that I can put in place to manage the process? So instead of looking at what you can't do, start focusing on what can I do in this current state. So, as human beings, we go into fight or flight mode. That's how our brains are in some way wired, and we're triggered by things. In the moment when you start calming yourself down, you don't react, you then start responding. And when you respond, it enables you to become mindful and consciously aware of the decisions that you're making and how you're exercising choice. You can decide, okay, so this is what I'm going to do. These are my steps that I'm going to take. This is how I'm going to deal with it. Another important thing to do is to have a gratitude journal, or just a little journal where you can write down all your feelings and emotions. It's really good to do this with your kids as well. If they're really troubled or they're feeling stressed, get them just to write down what they're feeling. And sometimes when you put pen to paper, you really put down all the things that are really maybe within you that you're not clear about, and when it's reflected there, you're able to then start working through them step by step. So as much as there's gratitude, there's also aspects of working through your emotions that are very important. And yeah, these are my contact details, and I thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to connect with you this evening.
Well, thanks so much, Khadijah. I think there was so much there that we can definitely take away. I like the fact that, you know, you speak about the gratitude journal or just a journal just to put things down. And it's something also practical that we can do with the children. I also like the fact that you're speaking about, you know, the breathing techniques and just for us to really think about the solution instead of just the problems. So those are things that's very useful. And I think it's things that doesn't cost money. Obviously, I love the fact that, you know, we can do something that's kind to the person next to us and reach out to others and create a sense of community once again, a sense of sharing. And then I love the conversation fact. I mean, Crawford is known for the School of Voice and Choice, where we actually instigate opportunities for our students to have a platform where they can express themselves. And I think they will do very well on our front to have conversations with the family, expressing their emotions and anxiety. But I think just putting it out there and creating those moments of conversation will be very useful to our family. So I thank you for your expertise there and for sharing with our families useful tips that they can put in place. So I'm very grateful. I'm going to go straight into the questions. There's a couple of questions that came through. One of our parents has said that, you know, she's a single parent and she feels very lonely, especially during this time. Do you perhaps have any advice for her to integrate into a group or to connect with somebody so that she doesn't feel so lonely during this time?
Yes, and I think that's such an important sort of question. And even as a single mom, I think it becomes more pertinent. It's important to try to, you know, find out in the community that she lives in, you know, who are the supportive groups that exist. Today on WhatsApp, you have a whole range of different groups, community forums that you could belong to. So maybe make inquiries through those channels, even with the schools in the area. I'm sure, you know, by chatting to another mom, perhaps from that particular district or suburb or region or location, she would be able to connect with person perhaps that could refer her then to someone else that, you know, she could actually reach out to and could include her maybe in certain community based initiatives and programs. So yes, I think the first step would be try to create a sense of knowledge and awareness of what's available in your area, reach out to the relevant individuals, speak to a friend perhaps who could refer you to someone in the area that you could belong to, and see in that capacity what is it that you can do. And I know when you're feeling lonely in these times, you know, try to connect with people. I know right now the only mode we have is what we're using right now. You know, I have a mom who is over 80 who lives in Nelspruit. You know, she's so far away, but my kids, they wait every evening just to connect with grandma. And she sometimes forgets because of her age and her illness and her mental health issues, etc. But you know, she gets so excited just to see us, and I think that cheers her up, but it cheers my kids up, and it cheers me up. So if you're feeling lonely, I think, you know, the other thing you could do is just online do a video call to somebody that you know, a family member, a friend. Seeing someone physically makes a huge difference, even if it's not in person, but even if it's online. Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I'm just thinking out loud, you know, I'm obviously great followers of the work of like TD Jakes, Oprah Winfrey, Jay Shetty. I mean, they're all my friends. They don't even know me, but you know, I'm hanging out with Jay Shetty at 4 a.m. So I think it's also important to draw strength from, you know, what's available that's uplifting, that's positive. Everybody uses Google, but I mean, they can use other platforms maybe to tap into an inspirational chat with Oprah and have a coffee date with her every afternoon. And so maybe that can also help just to break the lonely cycle.
100%. I think that's very valuable. There are lots of podcasts and lots of groups online that you could belong to as well.
The next question that came through, and I think this was more for us, Khadijah, but I'm just going to shed some light here, is how can the school support with anxiety for my child that my child is currently experiencing? And apart from SADC and all the support groups that's available, our schools, all the Crawford schools have a pastoral care group. So to the parents out there that does not know about this, there is pastoral care groups at every school, at every Crawford school, and the team is available to support and help. If the student do not feel comfortable just to go to that a stranger, for example, they're more than welcome to reach out to the registered teacher, or they can speak to a teacher that they trust, because it will be referred. They will then refer to the head of the pastoral care team, or to the teachers that's part of that committee, or even the school psychologist that's available. In most of the schools, we do also have the school psychologist available. Like, for example, in the case of Pretoria, we do have a psychologist there available. But if there's no psychologist available, there will definitely be a pastoral care group. There's life teachers that's working in the life orientation department. So to the parents out there that feel the students need to reach out, you can also just remind them tonight there's definitely support available. We always have the saying about Crawford Cares, and I mean, that is available. You can even consult the heads of the schools, the deputy principals, or just the teachers. Everybody will definitely be on board to support, because we're all together in this. So I'm hoping that will be useful. Then SEDAC is available if they want to obviously make calls, and even for our own parents, SEDAC is available. It is, the society, South African Society for Anxiety, Depression, and just really mental wellness or good state of mind. So that's also available, and the numbers are everywhere. Our school also share those numbers on the website, so that will be easy for you to find there as well. I'm going to go to another question, Khadijah. We've got about 5 minutes. And
Sure.
this parent is speaking about positivity in the home, wanting to bring about a feeling of positivity again in the home. So he's asking, how can he create moments at home to keep the family positive? So I know you've shared some examples, but maybe just 1 or 2 practical tips on how this parent can bring in a bit more positivity in his house.
Yeah, I think, it's important to create routine and structure. I always say having routine and structure, children thrive when there's routine and there's some. So, having certain activities, and also having initiative, children can be involved. They can contribute, like reference to the with girls help mom prepare. She's going to be delivering a particular group where she can give back to the community. So try to include your children in activities which are rewarding, fulfilling, and that also help them to have some purpose. That gives them a sense of encouragement, motivation, drive. I have teams that say, at 3 o'clock, I play board games. By then I'm done with my meetings at work. And dependent on your schedule, dependent on the time at hand, try to build into your day some time with your children, the quality time that children need. I say every child has a different love language, and so do parents. And some kids really thrive on quality time with parents. So one of the positive things you can do is create those moments, as I said, whether it's stepping outdoors and taking a walk. So at 4 o'clock or at this time, we're going to actually have a walk in the neighborhood, or we are going to play a board game, or we're going to do certain chores even in the house together, whether it's preparing dinner together or helping out in terms of the community support group. Create aspects that you can incorporate into your day-to-day experiences that will give children a sense of encouragement, purpose, value, and positivity in what they're able to do. And I think when there's accomplishment and children feel like they've actually accomplished something for the day, they feel really positive.
Yeah.
So yeah, try to these kind of moments.
Yeah, I like that creating of moments. I remember with the first hard lockdown, I was also sharing through a webinar. I was very with a big group of parents about things that they can do at home, and one of that was also like just to create family moments. For example, the children would come up with a theme. Tonight we in Thailand, and they make little placemats. They make the little rings, just from paper, serviette rings, and they decorate the table with whatever they can find in the house to actually like that, to resemble the theme of that particular country. And we did it actually for quite a couple of times, and it was quite good. And then they also came up with their own game eventually, with its own rules, etc., having a little family show. But I think it is creating those moments so that it can stay positive within the house. So I think that's very practical as well. One of our parents just came on, and she's speaking about there's actually so much to juggle. Do you have any advice for the students, especially experiencing this high volume of having to meet the assessment, expectations, being online, not away from friends, but then also have this balance with what's going on currently and not getting overwhelmed with all of that. So maybe one or two practical examples of how they can actually cope with the workload versus what's happening at the moment.
Okay, I think one of the things I just want to highlight is that children, again, they like stability, they love safety, they love security. And the schooling environment, interestingly enough, I read an article recently and it says that children find stability actually in schools, in terms of that. As much as, sometimes schools are like, oh my gosh, I've got work to do. And, sometimes children may be just turned off against this whole sort of notion. But it's actually a place that they spend most of their time in, where they socialize with friends, with colleagues. They actually become their own person and they're dealing with educators. So it's a place of safety. A schooling space is a space not just of learning, but it's also a space of safety. So I think, with children having to deal with so much of the crises, try to direct their energies into their normal day that they have to do, even if it's online or whether it's in whichever way, shape, or form. So if they know there's a purpose they have to fulfill with the work they need to do, it creates the meaningful purpose. Allow them online to connect with their friends, whether it's through online gaming, that's what they enjoy doing. My son loves that. And as much as I sometimes find it to be a vice, I allow him to have his 30 minutes or his 2 hours or, on a weekend, just to have that freedom to have an outlet. So allow them certain outlets with their colleagues and friends, even if it's not in person, but even if it's online. And then also create the routine and structure and balance. And green spaces, going outdoors, I can't emphasize how wonderful that is. Children love that. So, I've had so many kids that I coach, and in this time, many of them said they've taken up hiking and they're doing lots of things outdoors with their family members, even in the household. Say today we're going in the garden and we're just going to have our lunch outside on the grass. Try just to create the distractions and positive outlets of places and spaces where children can navigate to, that you can create in a really meaningful way. It doesn't mean you have to go far. You can just do it even in your own home, in the safety of your own environment. But structure, routine, balance. And I think also then talking through whatever emotional challenges they're dealing with, be in touch with your children, especially with teenagers, connect with them. It's not so much about, I'm telling you and I'm asking you, it's connecting with your children, trying to establish what's going on in their world.
Yeah, I like also what you shared, and it's interesting about the article that you mentioned that, children find school the places of stability and also a safe space. And I want to come in there and I want to extend this to our parents and say that, we are definitely there as a school, as a Crawford International school community. So yes, do reach out. I'm sure every single principal or deputy principal, even a teacher, would encourage you to please make contact, know that we are there, because I think we can also leverage off the expertise there that's existing. We always speak about teachers wearing multiple hats. One day they are counselor, one day they are supporter, one day they are cheerleader, but one day they also reprimand, for certain things. And therefore, I want to encourage our families once again to reach out to the school, because we are there, we are available, and we definitely will show up. Not so long ago, I had an engagement with leaders in Ghana, and we spoke about, showing up. You're showing up because that's what it's about, and you are there for one another. And that's exactly what I want to reiterate once again, that we're definitely there for our school communities and for our parents and for our wonderful and amazing students. Khadijah, we're out of time, but I'm going to take one more question because they are just coming in. I'm going to pull this one because there's actually so many that I started to write down, but I think we're definitely out of time. And the last one that I'm going to pull on is one of the parents speak about, do you have any tips, mechanisms that you can share on how children can cope with pressure during this time? And I think we've touched on bits and pieces of it, but let's make it specific to the pressure and what mechanisms can be put in place in order for them to cope with the pressure at the moment.
I think, like I said, just as a summary again, it's creating routine, trying to navigate through the process of dealing with children's emotions. So allowing them to express, to take time, to give them quality time, to listen carefully to what their concerns may be and challenges, to find outlets, creative ways of, helping them to, find a way to deflect from the current situation and the stress levels that they're experiencing with this bombarding news and negativity, but creating spaces and places where they can feel a little more relaxed and at ease by doing certain activities. The one thing that I really recommend is to get your child a self-soothing box. A self-soothing box is a little box, shoe box, it can be any box. And in that little box, you can have little things. What can I see, touch, smell, taste, and hear? And I love it when little children come to me, they say, in my self-soothing box, what can I taste? And they always have, the chocolates and the sweeties that go into the box because, it's about things that give them comfort. So I'm not saying go and fill the box up with all of that, but I'm saying allow your child to create a little self-soothing box. It could include something like bubbles for a bubble bath. It could include, that's something you could basically tap into from the sensory type of experience. What can I touch? And a lot of the time it's these poppets or it's a stress ball. What can I see? And a lot of the time kids will have a coloring book because they want to color and that's what they want to see, beautiful pictures. So kids can use their creative ways of putting things in that box that stimulate the five senses. And it's nice to actually put those boxes together with your kids. Find time in the day to say, okay, we're going to the box now. What are we going to do today? It's your self-soothing time. And create those moments and try to navigate through the process also of understanding your child better. Some children, I spoke about love languages earlier. Some children respond really well to touch, physical touch. They just want hugs and cuddles. Some children, their love language is words of affirmation. They love positivity. If you tell them positive things, especially affirmations, it's going to be okay, and use those constructively, they feel very enthusiastic about taking on certain things. So work with your child, understand their love language, and try to create spaces and places that will enable them to relieve the stress and the anxiety they may be feeling.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Just the last one, Khadijah. Parents are asking because they're obviously very grateful for this and they want to process obviously what was said. So they're asking, would this PowerPoint be made available to them? And I just want to ask whether that would be a possibility, because then we can definitely share it through our school platforms and make it available to them. Then they've got time to look at the strategies a little bit more closer. Would that be okay?
Perfectly fine with me, no problem at all.
Perfect. So there you have it, everybody that's listening. The PowerPoint will also be made available to you from tomorrow morning, and we will share it with the respective schools, and then they will share it via the channels, the communication channels. So yeah, Khadijah, we're completely out of time. I thank you once again for insightful conversation and just for spending time with us. It's been fantastic and it's been phenomenal, and I even have goosebumps because I just cannot believe, that we can actually share all this greatness and positivity, and also it gives me hope that there is obviously a way that we can navigate through this trying and difficult time. So I thank you for your time.
You're more than welcome. I thank you. I thank Dr. Caesar, and everybody else for the time that they've also dedicated to today's session. Thank you for this opportunity to share and to connect with you on this platform.
Awesome. So that's a wrap from us, everybody. On behalf of Dr. Caesar Majola, our Managing Director, on behalf of the brand office, every single school leader within the Crawford Group, teacher and staff member, we want to say to our families and the community out there that we're thinking of you. We know that we can navigate our way through this together. Together we are more powerful and more amazeballs. And I just want to remind you, it doesn't cost us anything to be kind to one another, because kindness doesn't cost us anything. So go out there and spread a bit of kindness, and just know you're from the Crawford family. We're thinking of you and you're very much loved. Mwah. Goodbye, everybody. Have a good evening, and thanks for tuning in.
Generation Z, Q, or even P. It doesn't matter. I am more than any letter you give to me. So please, don't try to box me. You'll find I come in many colors, shapes, and sizes. But mostly, I come unboxed. I can be online, offline, hang out with friends, and even draw the line. Because I'm more than just likes, shares, and cute little emojis. It is said, the choices you make determines your destiny. I say, it's not the choices that define me, but the reasons I made them. I choose to challenge notions of success only to bring about my own. I choose to be open so I can learn from others. I choose to look inward so I can plan my way forward. Yet, I know I have lots to learn, but I want more than just an education. I want to learn diverse skills and find the courage to influence this world. A world where my greatest competition is myself, because it's my world to shape. Someday, someone will ask me who I am, and I'll tell them, I'm a thinker, I'm an explorer, I'm a healer, I'm a problem solver, I'm a big dreamer. I will tell them, I am a global change maker.